borough council, and also it'll be videotaped by Mike Corson. This time, take public comment. Stand up, state your name, address.
My name is Mrs. Lasher, and I live on Harrison Street. I've lived there for 31 years, born and raised in Wkcm. 2 weeks ago, I had gone into my garage, did not close the garage door, went into the house. I wasn't in the house 10 minutes. Went back out and somebody had been in my garage. They had the door open on the driver's side and the glove compartment was open. I didn't think anything was missing, but now I have a little flashlight, it's gone. And there were 2 golf clubs at the back of the garage, and they're gone. Then on Sunday morning, I heard this knocking on my garage door early in the morning. My son had told me to call 911, which I did. And I had talked with somebody at the police barracks.
State police barracks.
On Monday, I went up to come up here and talked with Officer Gahagan, told him what had happened. Now it's 2 weeks today, I've not heard from Officer Gahagan. And that was on Monday. On early Wednesday morning, this knocking was on my garage door again. And when I had talked with someone at the police barracks, they said, when you call out here, you'll talk with a woman named Janet. And I called again, talked with Janet, and she said, you don't know this, but someone had patrolled around your house the night before. And I told her what had happened again. And I just hung up the phone, it rang, and it was Janet. She said, Mrs. Lasher, turn on your porch light. The trooper is on your street, which I did. And I believe his name was Robbins. He came up onto the porch, and I explained to him again what had been happening. On Sunday, I saw Henry over at Klingensmith's, asking him if he had any of this problem. He didn't, and I explained to him what had been happening. And he took his time on Sunday to come up here. I'm assuming that's where it was. Is that right, Henry?
Correct.
And I don't know if he talked with the other police officer, but as of today, I have not seen nor heard from either one of them. I am so scared in my own home because of this. That's all I have to say.
I'd like to add something to your story. I don't know if it was around about the same time that it happened to you. My mother was down back in my garden, and she was getting tomatoes, and she observed this fellow, everybody knows where the old Smith house is, come up through their yard, and she didn't know him, cut across, went over towards Marcy Gillespie's house. And at the time, she thought something was unusual, and I told her she should have called 911, but she can't walk out right. She come up here, and nobody was around, no police officer around or anything. And like I said, I told her she should have called 911, but she didn't. So,
was that the same day?
I don't know if it was the same day or not.
Well, I had dusk to dawn. I invested in dusk to dawn lights. And I have to say, well, I have been awake probably for 4 nights. The last 3 nights I have slept. If anything has been happening, I didn't hear it. I have the lights now in the front, dusk to dawn, and in the back, dusk to dawn. Motion light on my porch. No. I think it's somebody that walks. That's what I think. But I don't know. It hasn't happened to any of my neighbors. And my friends have been so good. Ruth wanted to come and sleep on my couch with me. Bertie and Bee, my neighbor next door, they've all been so good. But I still have, I'm really disappointed in our policemen. If they're checking, fine, but why not stop at my door and say, Mrs. Lasher, we have been checking around? But as of today, that has not happened. Is one of them here? I don't know.
Behind you.
If I may say something, if you want to see me after the meeting,
Wait,
I was going to talk about a security system for $10 a month.
After the meeting.
that's
And
after the meeting.
I'll talk to you after the meeting about security system for $10 a month, and I'll help you out with that.
I don't know what he's saying.
Every afternoon is the officer's testimony when he does yes, complaint. Does he visit on the
Well,
property?
wait till we get to the mayor's report.
Okay. He's right here, but he might.
I'm sorry, you think if it was
Any
public
other
safety.
public comment?
Might I say one more thing? If by any chance this, I don't know if anybody's here to put this in the Family Life paper, I do not want my name or street put in. If someone's here, I don't know.
She doesn't want to put in leader times.
Or short time, no, I don't want my name or address.
Mrs. Lasher, was that during the day or during the evening the first time?
Pardon
The
me?
first time, was that during the day or evening?
Yes, that was during the
During the
day. During
Like
the
during the
day.
weekday?
A weekday.
That's crazy.
I had just run into the house for a bathroom stop. That's what I had done.
And within that time frame.
And how quick it happened, I couldn't believe. But this during the night, well, it's made me a basket case, so it has.
Okay, any other public comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm Nancy Yost, I live in Northern Avenue, and I live beside Siler Flowers. I've been having, it's now into a war with him. He tells me that I am trespassing if I step accidentally or if I don't even think. And I'm so close to the line, and he watches to come and even put a little stake up and drew string, and I didn't break the string, but I guess the kids did. And now he's raising mosquitoes. He has 5-gallon buckets of water that have been there all summer, and there are the larvae in it. And he has, excuse me, he has his, of course, his flower baskets, and he has little china planters or butt vases or the things he would use, I guess, for the hospital flowers, and they're collecting water. They're piled in a 5-gallon bucket, and he still doesn't keep the area very nice. When I moved in there, it'll soon be 13 years ago, it was mowed, it was very neat. Now it looks like a jungle, even though he has cut some of the trees.
Well, as far as the trespassing issue, that's between problems.
Yeah, that's going to be.
That's nothing we can
Rather
get
than-
involved with that, that's between you and him. As far as the plots with water, I know you had sent him a letter, and he did clean up
He had a few cars, I think he had 2 cars.
cars there, and I know he did trim and clean up. Officer Dehagen, can you go up there and take a look to see what she's,
Well, another concern I have is there are people that are living in the apartment above the store, and the rotted metal steps. The fire escape is now a ladder, an aluminum ladder that is lashed to the railing of these rotten steps. There's holes in these steps, nobody could use them. And really, the place inside looks like a fire trap. It is so congested and so junky, basically like the outside is. Why is there nothing ever, can't anybody do it here?
We don't have a code enforcement officer.
Why is
number
there no
one.
code?
We don't have a building code and officer in this borough. So that's number one strike against all of us. All we can do is, through Officer Gahagan, and through our attorney, is write him a letter, and even if we have to, is go take pictures of a health hazard and detrimental fire escape
Oh,
to
I
the
know.
people who live there and tell them that he has 30 days to fix it up.
Well, the lady's gonna have a baby, or maybe she's had it by now.
Well, that's her problem.
Well, no, I mean, you're trying to get that.
I know what you mean, but I said, but there's another egress out along the side. There's more than just one egress out of that upstairs apartment. Isn't there
And they go
stairs?
in, they have an entrance on our street.
Yeah. But all we can do is look at it, write him up, and tell him that he has to get it fixed. But what we do not have is a code enforcement officer to go up there and cite him for bad steps, health issues with the mosquitoes. The county didn't even enforce their mosquito program that they have always had for years. So we can't count on having that party come up and say, you've got to empty these all out.
All right, now, is there any truth that the residents can no longer throw anything in the dumpster?
Yes, there is going to be in the paper a list of items that we accept on our day, on our weekly tour of collection, and items that we do not pick up.
Twice a month. Collections twice a month.
It's not that you, well, if you have, let me explain, if you have items that you need thrown away, you put them out and let the borough workers pick them up. The problem where we've had in the past is people have been using this for their own personal household garbage in it, and lumber, building materials, which is not permitted. So that's why we want to put a stop to anybody coming on their own and throwing stuff in the garbage or into the dumpster. That's where it's all coming from. But as far as picking up, we're still going to pick up trash twice a month.
Well, then what about the burning? Now, once it was in the paper, we could burn, and the hours were in there.
That'll
Then
come up
somebody
later.
told me in the paper.
That'll be coming up here shortly.
I'll wait for that.
Any other public comment?
What?
All right, if not, move on. I need a motion to accept the minutes. Motion,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I got a question on this.
second.
I have a question on this. I vetoed that ordinance, so why wasn't it in the rules?
No, you have to do that.
They do
That's why we didn't do it. That was why you couldn't do it at that meeting. You had to be given at least 10 days.
To the next regular meeting.
That meeting that we had, that special meeting, or recess meeting, it wasn't 10 days after the vote on the ordinance.
All right, any other questions on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, move on to mayor's report.
Captain Gahagan, do you want to read your monthly report?
The police report for the month of August, there were 6 traffic citation issues in warnings, 2 summary offenses in disorderly conduct, 2 DUIs, 1 simple assault issue, and 4 persons were arrested on outstanding warrants under the ordinance and violations portion. We had 7 investigations and conducted under the grass and brush portion of that. On our public notice, we put out there to the community, school is back in session. Parents and students need to be aware that school is back in those events occur before and during and after school lets out. The fall warnings can produce patchy ditch fog areas that restrict the visibility of children, buses, and other drivers. Please make your children heads up and aware of their surroundings. With the advent of mobile devices, heavy backpacks, sleepy heads, traffic, and other stranger danger elements that remain within communities throughout the area, Children need to be aware of what is going on and aware of the surroundings and the people that are involved with them. Drivers need to adjust their schedule to allow for their actions in the event of issues involving school buses and student safety. A major violation occurs when a driver passes a school bus in the duty of discharging or picking up students while flashing lights are in operation. Along with high costs and fines, there's a mandatory suspension of the driving privileges for that particular set of circumstances. You need to make the community aware of school being back in session.
Well, you mentioned it before. During the past summer, we had 3 vehicles removed by the owners from the board because of not having a current registration or inspection stickers. I don't know, I'll bring this up now, but police need the IBM or the computer equipment updated. They need it now.
Bring it up, new business. Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Okay, we'll go on to committee reports. Police. Henry?
All right. As everybody knows, we do have a police committee. A year or so ago, it was put on a ballot to see how everybody thought. There was a 65% positive reaction that we should encompass with another police department. We have done talks with other departments. Everybody said, well, let's go with East Franklin. I got a letter here from East Franklin. They said, no way. They are not getting into a 24/7 police department. They can't afford it. Right now they're in negotiations with one of their officers, and they don't know where that's going to go. I've also talked with North Buffalo, talked with their council president and their police committee, and they say they are not interested either. They cannot afford it. They can't really afford what they have right now. So this kind of brings it back down to where a year or 2 years ago, when it was on the ballot, to talk to the Katanning Police to have 24-hour, 7 days a week coverage, the same as Applewall. Applewall gets covered 24/7. And they've been very pleased with it. I grant you, if this would be adopted, it would save us $20,000 to $25,000 a year in costs. And at this time, I would like to have the representatives from Katanning Borough come forward and explain what we have talked about, so everybody here knows what playing ground that we are on.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thanks, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having us. My name is Bruce Matthews. I'm the police chief for Katanning Borough. I'm here tonight with our Mayor Kirk Atwood and President of Council Randy Cook. We was approached and had 2 separate meetings with the types of services that we're able to provide. And I understand from here tonight what the recommendation is leaning towards Katanning. But much more important than the recommendation is to understand the reasoning and the opinions and how they got there and how they reached that decision. We asked to be here tonight when it was appropriate to answer any questions for council and for people here in the general public. We reviewed a lot of questions, a lot of scenarios and what ifs, but we can't have several people in the room think up of everything. But we think we do have a pretty good basis on it, and we're here tonight because we feel that it would be a good fit. So at this time, I'll open up, take any questions that anybody might have, and then at the end of that question period, If there's information that we reviewed that we haven't touched upon, then we'll get into that. Do I have any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have enough officers in Kittanning Borough to provide protection or coverage for West Kittanning? And what would the response time be, say if somebody called for whatever here in West Kittanning, the response time?
And that's a very good question, and that was one of the first ones to come up, is are we stretching ourselves too thin? We are a 24-hour police department, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And one of the questions was, how is the calls going to be organized? You know, there is no Kittanning, there is no West Kittanning. You know, if this merger is successful, then this is Kittanning Police Department. And all the calls are together. There is no us or we, it's us together. And that's very important. So to answer your question, that would be, the calls would be prioritized. If we had 2 calls that come in at the same time, and there's a domestic up here that we're needed, and downtown we get a barking dog complaint, obviously we're going to come to the more serious offense. And we have to prioritize, and that's nothing different than what we do now. We run with 9 full-time officers, 8 full-time officers that rotate, and then I'm steady daylight. So we have 9 officers. We have 2 odd at all times, with the exception of 2 hours in the evening and 2 hours in the early morning AM hours, from 4 till 7. Other than that, we run 2 officers, so we are able to address multiple calls. And at times we have had that in Kittanning Borough. And it comes down to prioritizing what the call is. Does that answer your question, sir?
Beyond what the chief just said about the 2 officers out, we also do have our mutual aid agreements in place with all the surrounding municipalities as well.
Sir, the problem that I am having through the night, had I called 911, would they have addressed the call to you?
Yes, it would have came through our department.
And do you work through the night?
Yes, we're 24 hours a day, all hours of the night. And I believe that that's the main reason that we're here. It's not the service that you're getting from your current police department, but these economical times where everybody's trying to do more with less. And with the communities, the way they're deteriorating, the type of people and the transients, society is so mobile today that the 24-hour coverage is a given. It's something you have to have. And I believe that's one of the main reasons we're here. It's nothing to do with your current police department. They do a fine job. I've worked with Officer Gahegna for a number of years. But the question is, can you as a borough provide an additional service that's going to protect the citizens and be available that 24 hours? And that's where we come in and we sat down and talked, and we believe that that's something that can work. Yes, sir.
Do you have time for speed surveillance, setting up speed traps, watching stop signs or problem or,
That's going to be done at a very minimal. For example, if you're used to seeing 30, 40, or 50 citations a month that's written by your police department, that's something you're going to see very rarely with our department. We just don't have that kind of time to dedicate. But that's not to say if there's not a problem in a certain area that we can't address it. With the main thoroughfares, it gets to become a problem. You throw a blitz on that for a few days because it's the same people that's coming through, day in and day out. And when they know you're there and they know that you're out there, so, is that going to be something that you see on a daily or even a weekly basis? More than likely not. But when it becomes a problem and those problems become known to us, at that time it'll be addressed where those speed traps, so to speak, where the speed enforcement areas will be set up.
also DUI checkpoints, do you do those?
Yes, we're active with the DUI, with the county drug task force, and also with the DUI task force. Yes, sir.
Of that 24 hours, and none of us have seen the proposal yet, does your department see time in West Kittanning during that 24-hour period? As far as actual police within the borough of West Kittanning?
Yes.
How many hours? In
That
that 24 hours?
hasn't been broken down. It's going to be broken down into patrols. There's several patrol zones, and it's going to be addressed. And it's not going to be just a response time to where if Mrs. Lasher, for example, would call up, we come up, we handle that, and we go back down over the hill.
Right, but I'm talking scheduled patrols through West Kittanning.
There would be
set.
there would be set time, a set number of patrols that would occur on each officer's shift. But it's very difficult and probably impossible to set exact times that they will be here because they have to respond to calls. And so we can dedicate a certain number of patrols during each officer's shift, but we cannot put in a schedule of X number of hours. That we
Right, not just asking for a ballpark.
Again, if there are 13 issues being, occurring
So
up
it
here.
could be 15 minutes or 3 hours in a shift of, an 8-hour shift of the Kittanning
The
Police.
15 minutes would be in extreme circumstances if it was a major event. Yes, that is a possibility, but normal everyday business, no, not 15 minutes. That's not a patrol. A patrol, community policing is about getting to know your community, okay? We have a lot of work to do if this merger goes through. You're gonna see us a lot, the business district's gonna see us a lot. We're gonna get contact information from them. We'll have sheets filled out so we can go in and introduce ourselves. We know who to get a hold of. In Kittanning, I can tell you when I get out of this alley that I have 3 motion lights that come on in this block. We know that's second nature to us. If that light's on before we get there, then we're looking into why that light is on. Same with the business district. We know which lights are left on in the front, some are in the back. You go by and there's a different light on, that's stuff that sticks out. That's the benefit of having a 24-hour full-time department. This is our career, this isn't a job. We don't go and put our time in and leave. This is our home, this is our community. We live here, we raise our kids here, we have homes here. This is our community.
Question, maybe the mayor or the president can answer this. The 55,000 a year that was quoted, would we have to carry any type of insurance at all?
No, our insurance will handle everything because it's still our department. So $55,000 is your straight cost. And that's, again, our insurance will cover everything. The issue doesn't come until we're handling more than 10,000 residents. Then our insurance will be increased, and that's not going to happen with this merger.
Unless you're hiding about 4,000 people somewhere, we should be okay.
Yeah, and you need to let us know that.
And another question. It says in here, they asked the question of what increase it would be in the second and third year. Said that the increase would not be more than 2 or 3%. Is that going to be guaranteed that it will be more than 2 or 3?
Well, we would put that in the agreement. We would have the agreement written by our solicitor, and of course, Mr. Sacker would review that to make sure that your concerns are also addressed. But we can take a look at it, and either side can sever the agreement at any time if you're unhappy with the increase that there would be. It has been talked in our multiple meetings that we may be entering into a 6-month to begin, and renew that for another 6 months before we go into the year-long contract. As far as the costs go, I think that if you wanted to enter into a multiple-year contract, we could decide on a certain increase each year. If that's something that you would want into it, I don't have a problem doing it. The number's at 55,000 for the year. And we can do that, it wouldn't have to be a lump sum payment, it could be, paid monthly or quarterly, however you would choose to do that.
And if I may, the way our agreement is set up with Applewell, we do an annual agreement that automatically renews. And the only way that anything happens to that contract is if either side calls it to the table before that. In my 5 years, we've not done that. This is my 5th year.
There's also been no increase in that.
No, there hasn't been an increase in that in that time period.
I want to ask a question. You're charging West Kittanning $55,000 a year, and you have, 8 policemen?
Yes.
9.
Could you not hire another policeman? Because you would be getting money from Kittanning, and then from Applewell, and then from us?
I was really hoping in the beginning, because you could always use more manpower, but that's just not economical. That 55 wouldn't cover the cost of that patrolman's salaries and the benefit package. So no, it wouldn't be beneficial to put on additional manpower.
Can I state one thing? I have gone down and talked to people in Applewall, and they are very, excuse me, very pleased with the coverage that they are getting. I talked with one gentleman who had a burning residential fire from a neighbor 24/7, and the police were from Kittanning come over and talked to the fire E, and they were able to resolve that situation, because it's like here in the borough, Applewall's an older town. There's a lot of people on respirators, on oxygen, and this was bothering a lot of the people down there. And like I said, I've gone down and talked with the residents down there, and they've been very happy.
Okay, so you would follow our ordinances when you're out there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so our ordinances you would take care of.
Our officers will be sworn in by Mayor Savitsky, so they will be West Kittanning officers as well as Kittanning officers, so they can enforce any ordinance up here. Chief, do you want to touch on that? You've mentioned that a couple of times.
Sometimes there's a confusion between what's an ordinance and what is codes enforcement. Codes enforcement dealing with property that may be condemned or porch falling down. That's something that the police department is not prepared to handle. But the normal ordinances, whether it would be burning, parking ordinances, high grass, and those seem to be the main ones, and what everybody concentrates on. Those are our calls that would be handled by the police department.
Another question. It says that you are currently seeking a grant to give extra coverage for 2 hours before and after the shift.
Yes, that's Operation Buckwalk. It's a federal grant. That would allow us to dedicate totally towards traffic. There's an allotted time each quarter or every 6 months, depending on the guidelines of the grant. We had this several years ago, and we carried several phases for a number of years. And that's the only time we can afford to dedicate strictly for traffic. They're out there, they're being reimbursed. They would come out 2 hours before their shift or 2 hours after the shift. The next grant cycle that we were awarded, and so far it's just been renewed, as it comes up. That starts Thanksgiving weekend. And then at that time, there'll be another at the end of the year, and then spring, it carries for a longer period of time.
This is a grant that's get from you is renewed every year. You get it every year.
So far, yes, we have. We opted not to participate in it for 2 years. And we're just now reinstating that where we reapplied. And we was just notified here in the last 3 months that was awarded and will be put into the next grant cycle.
Another issue that's come up, and this is, the chief said we've had 2 meetings, and my council president said we've had several. I'll tell you the number I'm aware of is 5 since the ordinance, or the referendum up here. So one of the things that has come up in those meetings was about West Kittanning's equipment. And I've been emphatic about it, that we don't want your equipment right now, because we want to make sure this is something that's going to work for both municipalities. And if you want to do it, like Randy said, a 6-month contract or a 1-year contract to start with, you'd be silly to sign over those things to us within that first contract, and that's not something we would ask you to do. Now, whenever we look at year 2, year 3, if things are working out, which we anticipate they would be, and we want to start incorporating some of that, that could be something we could work out as a cost savings to you. We'll take, maybe a car, maybe whatever you have, that you would either be selling or getting rid of in another way, and we can take that off the cost of what you would owe us for that subsequent year.
We're not interested in coming in and taking over the equipment and backing you in the corner saying, well, we don't have a choice now, we can't afford to restart, we've given everything to them. Okay, well, we don't want that kind of relationship, okay? Hopefully over the years, if this works out, we'll build a good working relationship, which brings me to the point that there was also some concern, people afraid, council afraid that they're giving up power, they're giving up their police department. You're not giving up your police department. Obviously, I can't have 19 bosses, I'd never please anybody. But the current structure, have a good working relationship, hopefully build a good working relationship with everyone, and then with the mayor. And if there's anything that needs addressed or any problems that need addressed, then the mayor would bring that to my attention or make contact with Mayor Atwood, and it would be addressed. You guys do have a voice. This is your community. We're here to help and to assist you, not to take over, not to take away choices, but we're here to work with you mutually to benefit everybody so we can get the coverage and keep the coverage out there 24/7.
Like if this would go long-term, would you ever have any time when you would need to operate out of our police office? Or I guess maybe it's a question for council, what's going to become of our police office and the holding room?
That's not a facility that we would need. If available to us, we could look into that for a substation when we are up here and we need to process, where we could come here instead of just going downtown. The roving DUI patrols, the stationary patrols, there's not room big enough for the stationary patrols to be set up in town. Right now, the last several that's been here has been on Walmart Hill, right to the intersection. That would be a good opportunity for this facility if it was available to us. It's not something that's needed, but there certainly is times where that would be beneficial.
So you said you have two full-time officers at all times, except for the hours of 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. You have one officer on duty?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just clarifying that I read that.
And also in the evening hours, the shift that we run is 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 8 at night till 4 in the morning, and then 11 at 7. And then Friday and Saturday, we run noon until 8 p.m. we run a shift. And that's to overlap during the peak times where we have additional time out. And actually Friday and Saturday, fully staffed, we're at 3 officers out because we have a lot of events. So we have that extra officer out there as a floater, if you will, to take care of stuff at whatever event's going on.
And our contract also has a 6-week rotation in it, so you don't have to worry about me getting cheap and saying I want to leave a shift uncovered, because I don't have that authority. That's right in the contract. We have a 6-week rotation. All those shifts must be filled contractually. And we do have a complement of part-time officers as well to try to save us some money. Again, that won't have anything to do with you because your 55 is your set fees. You don't need to worry about our overtime or anything like that.
But, and I think that may point out a good, maybe an answer to a question. The question, how many people do we have? Now, right now, we're actually down an officer. We had an officer that moved on to bigger and better things. And we're going through the process to hire new, but in the meantime, we still have a schedule that we contractually must fill. And so although it is costing us more with overtime, we are meeting that obligation, and our schedule is not changing.
It hasn't fluctuated. Guys get tired sometimes, but they're all coming up good. The vacation season's behind us now, and within the next month or two, we'll have everything in order that we need to go on and be fully complemented again.
And you said from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Till 7 a.m.
One officer on duty?
Yes. And a little bit of history, because that 8 at night till 4 in the morning really sounds like an awkward, who comes out and works 8 at night till 4 in the morning? Those are to allow for the peak times when the bars are open, to have that additional officer out for officer safety. So that's why that 8 o'clock guy comes out, to assist and overlap before with the midnight guy and with the 3 to 11. So there is 2 officers out. The last schedule, which was, I've been here 21 years, it was 2 on each shift. Obviously, that's not the case, and I've never seen that in my career. But as a compromise, it was changed at 8 at night till 4 in the morning. And we've had a lot of full-time departments call and actually model that off of us because it deals strictly with officer safety.
So if you only have one officer on from 4 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's tied up, let's say in Kittanning, and a call comes in, say up here in West Kittanning, what's the procedure?
That will come down to prioritizing which one needs addressed first.
Well, let's say he's in a domestic down there, and call comes in, there's a domestic up here.
I guess my answer to that would be then you're no worse off than you are right now. To be fair, I mean, it's the same situation you have.
But we do have the mutual aid where we can call surrounding departments, Ford City or Pennsylvania State Police, to have them. But initially, we're going to secure that scene. Then our investigation might not be complete. We have holding cells. They're going to be kept in the holding cells so we can get up here and address that. That doesn't mean that we're going to just stay down there and say, well, we're already on a call. It doesn't work that way. It gets hectic sometimes. But we're going to secure that scene, and if that means handcuffing somebody, taking them down and throwing them in jail or into the holding cell until such time we can sort through everything and finish our investigation, then that's what we do, so we can get up here or wherever the other problem is to address what's going on there. Life and property are the top two things.
I guess my concern is, what I'm looking at, what I'm asking is, let's say, right now, Catania gets called, there's one officer on, gets called to domestic in Catania. And 5 minutes later, call comes in from up here, there's a domestic. He can't really leave down there and come up here. And you know as well as I do, to rely on the state police, they might not get here.
It's a half hour, 40 minutes out.
Yeah.
And we address it as quickly as possible. We do put the call out for help, that we need assistance. And at that time, we're going to secure somebody, not through 911. We're going to have them to make a call where the call originated from, to ask if that person is safe. Are you locked in the bedroom? Did you separate yourself from the problem? We're going to address the problem through 911 the best we can to make it stable. And that's the key word there, is to make it stable until we can respond to it. And at that time, it's going to be hasty that we get to the other place, and if somebody needs taken in, we take them down, put them in the holding cell, and then come here.
But again, that being our non-peak time as well.
Right.
That's when we have the least calls that do come in.
Right, it's not willy-nilly that there's only one officer on at that time period. That historically has been the low points of calls. So, and we also address the high point of calls with having 3 officers out at that time. So, if we didn't feel comfortable doing it, we wouldn't be making this offer. With that being said, this is a conversation that has been occurring now for nearly 2 years. Since January, I've been in on 3 or 4 meetings to discuss this. And if you choose to proceed with it, there will be more meetings necessary to iron out the details of the contract. I guess our purpose of being here this evening is twofold. To answer any questions that you have, and also to get an idea if this is something that you're interested in doing. If you're interested, we're more than happy to continue talking. But if your mind's made up that this isn't something you want to do, then we're not going to discuss it anymore.
I don't think that anybody's mind is not made up. I think it's a matter of, we've got to figure out, the amount of money that we're saving, we're losing. It comes down to the money. You know what I mean? So we've got to sit down and discuss. The finance committee needs to go over and, fine tooth comb it. So it's not.
Well, I can tell you, in 2013, 2012. I can't remember which year it was. We allocated $76,000 for the police department. That's what it was in the audit, $76,000.
That was with uniforms, and wasn't there an overabundance in uniforms and et cetera?
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't say that, even if you took half of those uniforms away, what's it gonna knock it down, $500? That's talking fuel, insurance, wages, maintenance on the vehicles. That's roughly, if even if you just say 75,000, that's, a savings of $20,000 with the mill and taxes. That mill and taxes brings in 20,000, Muscatine, approximately 20,000. But I think we got the information. Did anybody else have any questions of these gentlemen?
Because the numbers that were for the police department in 2011 was 45,000. In 2013, it was 72, almost 73,000. Now we're up to 76,000, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Carly, can you explain the jump? Why it was such a big jump from the 45,000 in 2011 and 72,000 in 2013? Like,
Wages.
Probably wages.
What are you doing?
We had 3 at one point in time, then we're down to 2.
Just wages.
Because I know the one year, 2012, I may be wrong, but Officer Buchanan was only on for half a year. And then the following year, he went on all year, which,
okay.
the wages.
Thank you.
The officers we have now, we have 2 part-time officers that work how many hours a week? 20 hours a week? 20 hours a week?
One's
That's very
32 and one's 24.
And do you cover like certain hours on certain days? Or how's that work? What's the coverage and the more as far as the officers?
Right now, we're scheduled 7 days a week, a shift. I don't like to tell you what time, because,
Yeah, right.
right now, we're 7 day a week, one shift.
But I'll reiterate on that. Yes, we do have 7 days a week coverage, but there are times where things happen where we are not covered, where we would be covered with Wkcm.
Let's put it this way, there's more times that we aren't covered by our police than we are covered by our police.
That's right, never at night and never.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
Okay, I will just add at the end, do you have a time frame of when you'd like to let us know? We're also building on our budget
Yeah.
in our stuff, so we would, if it's something you're interested in, we'd like to spend the next 2 months ironing out the details of an agreement so we can kick it in for January 1st. That would be ideal for us and probably for you as well, because we both follow the same budgeting procedure and time frame. So I think that would be best.
Well, I think we're gonna have to get together first the police committee and,
And it's also by the end of October.
Possibly.
yeah.
Would that be all right, Randy?
Sure. End of October should be fine.
That gives us another council meeting.
Well, the end of October, in order to have the agreement drawn up, the agreement's not going to be done in an hour or two. It's
No.
going to spend,
But this will give you an idea of the consensus of everybody.
Okay.
And then we can sit down and hammer out the agreement.
perfect. Sounds good.
Well, by November's council.
Well, yeah, it'll be October's council meeting. And November's,
This is September, we can't do everything all of October. Do that one.
yeah,
No,
November's.
by November's council.
November's.
I don't want to set anything in stone.
That way it's enough time to discuss it.
Yes.
Write everything down and go from there.
Yeah, there's a lot to still hammer out.
Any other questions for the gentleman? Well, we're gonna move on to.
Thank you very much for your time.
Personnel.
We are still in the midst of going through applications We are having a meeting on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. The committee, Paul, Eddie, myself, and we're gonna, like we did before, we're gonna go through them, take out the ones that have the best recommendation in working ability. One thing that we are going to do, we started this out at $9.50 an hour. It's been a general consensus of us on the personnel committee that we should start this out at $10 an hour with 50 cents raised after 90 days of work. It seems like this low starting out wage has deterred people from wanting to work here. Because the jobs that they went to started out at $10 an hour. And I think we can afford to start out at $10 an hour and give them 50 cents after 90 days. And we've got a group of very excellent bodies here in about 15 applications. And we will whittle this down to 3 or 4 and call them in for either by the end of the month or by the end of the week or the first of next week to have interviews in person.
And if need be, we'll have an executive session, Mr. President. Or do you want to wait till the next meeting? Yeah.
Well, I was going to recess the meeting. I was just thinking about that, recess it just for the purpose of hiring the world.
I appreciate it.
You'll have to let me know how
What
long.
day, yeah.
You'll have to.
Well, no,
Anything else?
What do you want to do, the date?
yeah, the date, we're gonna do the interview, or your room on, this Wednesday. We will call
So just
by Friday.
recess.
And have you'll be available on Monday. Next, a week from today.